How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Emerald City Hockey Post Game Live. Unfortunately, following another loss, but we are here. We'll have a good time breaking it down. Hopefully, I mean, like this game was very different from the last couple. I think there's some big positive takeaways to have from this one. I know the score is worse, but I think that there's still some positive takeaways, and I'm excited to kind of talk about those. Want to, of course, thank Flat Stick Pub for sponsoring this post game live, like they do all the post game lives this season. And again, shout out! I'm super pumped for that watch party on April 5th to be up there, watch the game with everybody against the Ducks on April 5th at that South Lake Union location. So just another plug for that one because I'm really excited to be able to watch a game with everybody in person. All right, so this game, it's a loss, like I said, but I think that this was the first time that we've seen this homestand outside the Vegas game where the team looked like they cared. They had a high effort level. They had some good energy. Still allergic to momentum. Still, they scored 24 seconds in and immediately, give that away. Go score 3 on us, Sabres, please. We don't like this momentum thing. But they kept up the effort level. We saw them play with some passion and with some fire in the third period in a way that was more reminiscent of season 1 than what we've seen the last couple games. And I think that that's a big deal. And I was very excited to see that because that's something that we've been missing, and that's what we've been wanting to see. On the flip side, you got 1 point out of a 5-game homestand that you entered with the season on the line, right? Back when they entered and started this homestand, playoffs were still a possibility. They were within striking distance. This is not the case now. Your season just ended on a 5-game homestand to which you collected 1 point. That's really that's a problem. That's not good. And there's still a lot of issues. Even though the effort level was better for this game, there's still a bunch of issues that this team's going to need to figure out down the stretch. And there's a lot of options that they can and directions they can go in. I've already seen some comments about them, so I'll go ahead and start there. Kick things off with Gregory in with the super chat. This loss makes me sick to my stomach. Sorry. Ugh. I'm with you, Gregory. Like it does. Like just it's the collective homestand and the losing streak and the fact that, like I said earlier, you walk away with 1 point out of 5 games at home with the season on the line. It's pretty unacceptable, right? Like that's where we're at. So I'm right there with you, Gregory. Like it is upsetting. I know there was positives. I pointed out the one positive already, but again, this was also one where Joey gets chased on 4 shots. He makes 1 save on 4 shots. A 250 save percentage from Joey Decord. Like that's enough to make anybody sick to their stomach. And then Grubauer comes in and yes, he's able to hold it down for the most part, but still, I mean, like some of those really Jeff Skinner whiffs on a shot and it goes in. He doesn't even get the shot off right. It just kind of slides along the ice and in. Like that's where we're at. Oh man, I had much higher hopes for this game and the lineup changes, but unfortunately, yes, I think we were all kind of stuck here, Gregory, with that pit in our stomachs. Unfortunately, Bryce with the woof. Zoe, we're now 3-14-3. Sans Vince done. It's almost like he's important. It's almost like he's a good player, potentially their best player. B, my power went out less than 10 minutes into the first period. The universe was trying to spare me from having to watch. It does appear that way, B. I hope power's back and everything's okay. But yeah, if you missed or part of or all of that game, you didn't miss much. That's for sure. Julia Root of Jeff Skinner to score a hat trick when not at home, so we didn't even get the benefit of hearing breaking free 3 times. That is true. Love how Buffalo has all the players choose their own goal song. I do like that. I know I'm in the minority, but I like that. And I do love that Jeff Skinner chose a High School Musical song to be his goal song. And yes, that is disappointing, Julia. That is great. Cheddar Slice, why does it I feel like we need a complete rebuild when we don't even have a solid foundation in place yet? They have a solid foundation in place. It's just that in the NHL it can take a while, right? Like Matty Beniers was able to come in relatively quick. Shane Wright is taking, the more traditional length, right? Edward Chalet has a lot of promise and potential. They have so many great second round picks that are doing great. It's just that they take such a long time to get there. It's just like in baseball, they just take forever, the prospects, to get there. So I think that they have a solid foundation. It's just that the foundation's not at the NHL level yet. And then the other thing is it can change very quickly. Like all of a sudden you just swap out one or two pieces and this team is different. This team's a playoff team, right? I mean, that's essentially what happened over the last offseason was one or three guys left and look at where we're at now versus last year. I know the shooting percentage and all of that stuff did change as well, but it can be that simple. And so we're starting to transition like our content into that kind of stuff. I'm excited for next week because I kind of have some alternatives to if we can't get a star player or a finisher, what direction Ron Francis can go in that I think will make a tangible difference, will help this team score goals because through the vast majority of this season, especially if you're going to have both goaltenders playing well, Kraken, they lost a lot of one-goal games, a lot of situations where if they just got one more goal or a goal a little bit earlier so momentum could shift or they could be playing with the lead rather than from behind, I think they'd be in a big difference in where they'd be in the standings. So I hear you. It definitely feels that way this year, but I also think that they're closer to turning it around than it might appear after nights like tonight. Light with the super chat. Hey, this is what we all needed. A fast-paced, aggressive game that we lost. That's how we get Celebrini, baby. It is like this is what you want. I talked about it on the podcast earlier. What should fans be rooting for the rest of the way? It's games kind of like this, maybe a little bit closer, but it was games reminiscent of season one where you feel like the team goes out there, they try their hardest, they put out the effort level, but ultimately they lose and it helps the draft position. Like that's the silver lining to the idea of a loss. I think it's a great situation. You can go out there and you can still root for your team, root for the win. It's still good when they win. It's fun when they win. We all want to see them win. But the silver lining now is that when they lose, they move up the draft board. Like that's okay. Like so it's kind of like, kind of getting the best of both worlds. So I do appreciate that aspect of this. Viren, well, we beat Tampa this year. Only fair that we would lose to Buffalo. that is true. We did. This is true. No, uh, I guess it was bound to happen. And you're right. If that's the offset for beating Tampa, I guess we got to take it. Be first ever Kraken loss to Buffalo. I think it is. It is our first loss to Buffalo. So it's tough. It was bound to happen at some point, though. Young Muerte, no lemon lime Gatorade time. I know it's been a long time. I don't know that I remember what lemon lime Gatorade tastes like. It's been so long. It's gonna be quite the shock to the system when I get to have it again. Whenever the Kraken decide to let me do that. Hey, maybe it'll be Thursday, which is our live game commentary over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey. We're gonna be watching that Vegas game with everybody. So if you're interested, you can check that out. You could also sign up for the 7-day trial. That'll carry you through next Monday when I have my prospect chat. How's that for a plug? Cheddar Slice, where are the young guys? Young guys are in Coachella Valley or in major juniors or in like Yanni Newman's case, Europe. They're like I said, they just gonna take a little bit more time. There's not a lot of guys that they could call up right now that really makes sense because you don't have a ton of roster spots next year that are going to be available to young guys. So we talked about this too on the podcast earlier. You could bring up someone like a Cameron Hughes or a Logan Morrison, kind of reward them for how well they've played in Coachella Valley, get an idea of what they look like at the NHL level, because you already know where Shane Wright's going to be. Shane Wright's going to be on this team next year. Ryan Winterton's going to have a chance next year, but probably won't be. And we've already seen him for 3 games at the NHL level. You can start calling up some of those guys for like a little bit of a cup of coffee, but understand that there's only going to be 1, maybe 2 spots in the bottom 6 available next year for young guys to sneak into this lineup, because otherwise they just return so many people still, right? By re-signing Jordan Eberle and keeping him around for next year, Tolvanen, I'm sure they're going to keep him. There's only a handful of guys that are kind of coming off the books. There's not going to be a ton of opportunities for people. So I think that's partly why the Kraken are instead going with what we saw tonight, which is let's really shake up the lines. Let's see if guys have chemistry so that we can pair them up next season instead of calling up young guys just because You can call up the young guys, but if there's not going to be a spot for them next year, I don't know that it really benefits you or the organization as a whole that much versus letting them cook in Coachella Valley where they have the second best record in that league. Right? And you could just kind of keep that train rolling and not have to worry about disturbing it too much. Light with the super chat. Could you see us give a guy like Logan Morrison a couple games spin coming up? He's not slide eligible, and I love the idea of how he looks right now. Well, I guess I already said yes. I think Karen Hughes, Logan Morrison, those two are the top of my list just because we know what Shane Wright is. Um, and I'm with you. I think Logan Morrison's playing really well. I really am a big fan of Logan Morrison. Every time I watch Coachella Valley, he jumps off the page or the screen at me. I really am. And so, yes, I brought that up earlier. I brought it up now. I'm right there with you, Light. I think that it would be something worth doing because I think he's got a really solid north-south game. I think he could match really well and kind of be the next Ty Cartier. That's really what me and RJ talked about on the pod is that he could be that kind of next guy where he comes in, he's got the skill and the ability to kind of do a little bit of everything, whatever you need him to do, he can do. And I think that that's going to be valuable, especially at a bottom six role next year for this team and just have some energy and the excitement of being in the show, right? Like that's good to have as well. So I am excited about that. Jenna, they had a pulse. They did. That was enough. We got a proof of life from this team. I'm okay with that. I'm on board with that. I'm happy about that for sure. Julia, the honesty, they honestly didn't even play that bad. Money Puck has us at an 81.7% on the winometer and 3.83 expected goals versus 1.86. Yeah, no, they didn't play bad. Like they gave a lot of time and space to some skilled guys on Buffalo, and those skilled guys on Buffalo were able to, snipe some pucks. Joey was a little bit off, although to be honest, some of those snipes were just kind of perfectly placed. I think this is more of an issue of the defense being a little bit too passive, a little bit too conservative. Now, that's the way they've been playing. That's been their approach as a whole. It's just kind of what they're going for right now, just because that's how they had shifted, right? They were struggling to score goals. They decided to focus on defense, lean on the fact that their goaltenders were playing really well. And then that was, how they fixed the defensive focus issue to play that way, which was keep the play in front of you, keep it simple, stay back, let the forwards come back and help you out because they're good. They just didn't really it just didn't work tonight, right? All that happened was Buffalo was prepared. Buffalo plays a lot of east-west. Kraken were not prepared to kind of stop that puck movement. They were able to find themselves in the slot with a lot of time and space. And when you find yourself in the slot with a lot of time and space so that you can pick your head up and look at the goaltender, it allows you to pick the spots where the goaltender isn't. And I think that's a lot of what we saw tonight. And yeah, that's just what it was. Got the heads up to kind of come down here and maybe check a look at this comment from Brooke. Just got home from CPA. Vibes were bad. Power play is so bad. Heard more people yelling for a shot more times tonight than I have all season. I don't know what's wrong with them. The team seems frustrated, but aren't doing enough to address their problems. Is it intentional at this point? I do not think that it's intentional. But I'm with you. There are certain things that need to change. The fact that this team will always make that one extra pass, that's been a hallmark of this team all 3 seasons. It needs to change. The power play is still so bad and basic, and there's just only perimeter puck movement using the defenseman or whoever's playing at the point as the vessel for that. And it's lazy and it's bad, right? It hasn't worked all along. I know you got a power play goal tonight. Whoop-de-doo. Like it was because it bounced crazy and the goaltender had no idea where it was and it was sitting on the goal line for Matty Beniers, right? Like it shouldn't take that for you to get power play goals, and yet all too often it takes these weird scenarios for them to convert on the power play. So I'm with you. I don't think it's intentional, but I also think that they haven't been proactive enough about some of the things that they need to. Um, I I'm sorry that the vibes were bad. I know that they've certainly have been, and the team hasn't done anything to change that. Although, like I said earlier, the team was playing a little bit better now. Like tonight, they had a little bit more energy. I liked that, but also when you concede 3 goals like that, you chase Joey Decord 5 minutes into a game. yeah, especially after the way the team has played. I mean, this is what playing the way that team has played the last couple games does, where it puts you in a spot where fans aren't gonna give you the benefit of a doubt. When the game starts bad, people are just gonna be into that negative mindset. And they're just gonna say, "Oh, here we go again." And yes, ultimately that's the way it played out. But I also think that look, they did try, they hung in there in the third period. I want to give them that win, but this is what you got to worry about. And I know I was seeing stuff like tickets right before this game were like $15. You can get in the building for $15. Like again, this is the stuff that the Kraken need to worry about long term with their inability to win at home and more recently their inability to even look good at home. That's the problem. Um, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse from JMG. Let's see, George. When I say tankathon, that's not what I meant. This is brutal. It was brutal. But they are moving up, as CJ saying, tankathon to the number 8 pick. That's right. That is right. That's what we wanted to be. Buffalo's part of this group that the Kraken are going to find themselves in here. And as far as, the difference between picks 8 through 11 or 12, and you're going to want to be on the right side of that. It's a big difference in who's going to be available for you. Um, let's see, Alan, it's not a loss. This was a blowout against a team we usually have the number of. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's true. It was a blowout. I'm just happy that for almost 5 minutes we held the opposing goalie to a 0% save percentage from Cole. That's right. Not very often we get to do that. Not very often we get to do that at all. Light with another super chat. Can we talk about how Maddie had a pretty solid game? He had the highest expected goals on the team. He was easily our best center tonight. He was, and yes, we can. Thank you for the third super chat tonight, Light. I really appreciate that. Maddie did have a solid game. I think having Tolvanen up there with him helps, just because Tolvanen's a little bit more of a well-rounded player. He's a guy who can go in on the forecheck. Like, I think this is why Maddie and Ty Cartier work, although Tolvanen's a little bit more skilled, is because Maddie needs somebody who can go in on the forecheck and collect the puck or handle the cycle game, because that then frees up Matty Beniers to use his vision, right? All too often when Matty was playing, whether it was with, obviously with Eberle, but whether it was with Tatar or Jared McCann, a lot of times it looked like Matty felt responsible for kind of trying to keep the cycle going either in the corner or below the goal line. Matty likes to play up high in the zone. That's where he sees the ice the best. We know this about him. That's the way he's played going all the way back to his days at Michigan. And so by having a guy like Eli Tolvanen out there on that line, Tolvanen has no problem going below the goal line. He has no problem going in on the forecheck to try to dig out a loose puck or something like that. And by having a guy like that on the line for Matty, or again, like Cartier last year in the playoffs or earlier this year, by having somebody like that out there with Matty, it allows Matty to play where he wants to play. And I think what we saw from him tonight was a lot more vision, a lot more dynamic playmaking ability, stuff like that, because that's where he wants to shine. That's where he shines. That's where he's comfortable. It's where he's confident. And so I really like that change. It's something that I just brought up like haphazardly yesterday. I was talking with somebody and I brought it up, and I was glad to see that happened. But I think what this tells us is, whether it's Ty Cartier or more preferably an Eli Tolvanen, who is a skilled player who can kind of match the skill of Eberle and Matty Beniers, Matty needs somebody who's going to be a more physical presence and play down low in the zone, because that frees up Matty to be where he wants to be. And I think that tonight really just gave us confirmation of that. And it shows us that, yes, even though Jared McCann is a great sniper and he's got good chemistry with Ebbs and Beniers, it's just not the same. It does not put Matty in the best place to succeed. Tonight we saw Matty put himself in his best place to succeed, and it was because Eli Tolvanen was there to help create space for him and create opportunities for him to be in those places. So I think that a lot of, obviously credit to Matty for playing well, but I think a lot of this goes just to having Eli Tolvanen on the line with him. I think that was just a really good call from the coaching staff with the shakeup on the lines. Let's see here. I thought the effort was better tonight, but they just look out of sync. I think that's appropriate, just because, look, the effort level was definitely better. A little out of sync because the lines were very different, right? I just talked about Tolvanen playing with Matty Beniers. We've never seen that outside of a power play before. I think that is part of it. if they're able to stay with this lineup for a little while, you'll start seeing that chemistry develop. You'll start seeing guys vibe with each other a little bit better, and they'll start being in sync a little bit more. Like with another super chat, dare I say, McCann and Bjorkstrand with Shane next year. It's interesting. I think Shane Wright needs somebody who can clear out the slot for him, right? We know Shane Wright likes coming down the slot, down the middle of the ice. I think Shane Wright needs somebody on his wing who's going to come through, clear out the slot, open that up for him, and give him some time and space. And the only guy on this roster that does that consistently, Yanni Gourde. I want Yanni Gourde on Shane Wright's wing next year. Like, that is the matchup that I want. We've got RJ here ready to join us. I'm just trying to, it's giving me issues with the graphic, so I'll just bring RJ in while the graphic trying to load. There we go.
There you go. You got it.
How's it going, RJ? That is lightning quick. I mean, we are 20 minutes in and you are joining us.
Yeah, this is the fastest I think I've ever seen the locker room open up for the players. I had the first elevator down there and already it was open. Yeah, so it was really fast. Not too much as far as, long answers from the players or from Hackstall for that matter. I think it was another 2-question media availability from him. But yeah, I mean, after a 5-loss homestand, that's kind of where we're at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there was elements of this game that were better. I feel like the effort level was a lot better. The energy in the third period was a lot better. But at the same time, RJ, again, still allergic to momentum, and still you got crushed in the final game of a really bad homestand.
Right. I mean, yeah, the effort level was a little bit better. The momentum thing, I just kept thinking about how you talked about it in the past, right? I even put it in a tweet, allergic to momentum. That's kind of where we're at. But now, Dylan, it was a rough game. I do have a little bit of good news, though. All right.
Okay.
We have a guest. We have another special guest. This time it's Glenn Dreyfus from the Hockey News. Everybody say hi to Glenn in chat.
Jeff wasn't available tonight, and I never turned down some free therapy.
He's here to help us with the Emerald City therapy. I think he's well suited for it. So, I mean, just starting off, Glenn, your impressions of this game. I know not much one to remember really, but I mean, was it effort thing, execution? I mean, where are we at right now?
Where we're at right now is, how's Jagger Firkus doing? How about Goyette? How about Rakoff? Because it's seeding for the draft lottery now.
Yeah. Now, we had this discussion on the podcast earlier today about the fan situation, right? Like, how should they approach this sort of thing? Do you root for losses? Wins kind of hurt you standings wise at this point. What's your philosophy on that?
You don't have to root for losses. They're going to come anyway. But no, you want your team to win, and the players are still trying to win. They're just not good enough to win. And it's just human nature that you're not going to be able to give that extra gear when the season is going to end after the X number of games. And it really doesn't matter. The Kraken have the problem of being in that mushy middle where they're not going to get a generational talent, and it's going to be more on Ron Francis, the GM, to try to pull a rabbit out of the hat by trade or free agency in the off season.
Now, Dylan, kind of where's Chad at? What's the conversation been about? I know last time after the game, it was we were talking about off-season moves potentially with Jeff, with Zegras. What's been the conversation so far?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about has been the lineup shakeup that we saw for this one, and how it did help kind of wake up Matty Beniers a little bit in this game. We were talking about how this has been his best game. I liked having Tolvanen up there. I think that there was still some issues that need to be ironed out, but probably just gets worked out with some time with everybody. But I feel like for the most part, these lines, like we talked about earlier, RJ, they're the lines they should go with the rest of the way.
Yeah, I don't mind them sticking with it. And I mean, the players afterward, there were some questions about, and even Hackstall too, there were some questions about whether the new lines had kind of caused some of these issues. And I think the players kind of pushed back on that no, it was just, we need to play better all around. It wasn't the new line combos. I think it just needs time.
Yeah, definitely. Also, just for you, Glenn, by the way, everybody's very excited to see you in here. Love the Hockey News. I mean, Becca, the Hockey News is the only reason I get excited to check my mail, lol. So just want to let you know people are excited there.
Thanks, Mom.
Great stuff. Now, one of the things that everybody's also talked about in this one, RJ, is the fact that, look, Kraken, they were at like 80% on the winometer. Like the Kraken played well in this one. It was just, again, they can't finish. And then was it the goaltending? Was it the defense? Like what happened that causes Joey to get chased after only 4 shots with a .250 save percentage?
Yeah, I mean, Glenn, you want to start this one?
I don't think it's just this game.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a question after last season. Can winning by committee be sustainable? Can you win with 4 second lines? Well, now we have our answer. No, you can't. Without elite talent, you can't sustain it. It was an outlier what happened last season, at least in my opinion. You can't win by committee year after year without everything going right. So I think it's just a structural thing. This is a third-year team. They raised expectations unreasonably high last year. And maybe this is what the team really is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think over the course of a season, we've seen that. As for tonight, early on, I think it was goaltending. And this was just one of those games. Joey didn't have it. And simple as that. There's no shame in it. It happens to every goalie. And Hackstall after the game said, I like the way he phrased it too, because it didn't directly say, Joey had a bad game, but he said, I know Joey. I know when he's got it going, he makes those saves. And I think, that's true, right? When Joey's Decord is on his game, he makes those saves, and you kind of need him to make those saves. He didn't tonight.
All right, but what if he did make those saves? Because look at this homestand. 0 goals against Winnipeg. Let's throw out the Vegas game. Even strength goals against Washington, 0. Even strength goals 5-on-5 against Nashville, 0. Tonight against the Sabres, 1.
Right. I mean, the scoring, the production just hasn't been there. They had a few close chances, especially in the third where they had those 2 close ones that I know Burakovsky had the second one. I forget who had the first. I think we like Karche coming to the net that should have been goals. But still, I mean, they just don't have the ability to finish there. You only score 2. You need the goalie to only give up 1. And that just wasn't happening tonight, no matter who was in that.
No, and I look at Buffalo and I go, like, there's some stuff that the Kraken should take away. Like, look at the east-west passing at the top end of the zone that got Buffalo all those incredible chances coming down the slot with a ton of time and space, right? Where their players are able to pick their head up and just pick apart the goaltender. Like, the Kraken never do stuff like that, right? They never put themselves in positions to succeed when it comes to shooting the puck. And that is something that I would like to see from them. Got a couple super chats here. First one from Schultz. With so few spots free agency next season, how can there be a massive turnaround? Was the 4th line a combination of players not going to be around? Because I was talking about the fact that for the most part, this Kraken group is coming back next year, at least at the forward spot, right? There's going to be 1, maybe 2 spots in the bottom 6. So, I mean, where is the chance to really, is there a chance to really kind of turn this group around?
I mean, barring a trade, they have 11 players ready to go for 11 forwards. I mean, ready to go for next season, right? There's not really any spots there unless they move somebody. Now, I think they probably will at some point, but it's going to have to come from a trade, I think. What do you think, Glenn?
I think the Kraken have to look out the box because everybody knows Ron Francis has to find scoring. Well, the other 31 teams and their GMs know it too. So you're really not going to fleece anybody and get in goal scorers. So maybe you have to think outside the box. Could trading a Jared McCann, for instance, who is a player who is very valuable to a team that thinks it's one player away, could you get 2 high-level prospects? Could you get younger players? Because this is a tough thing to say. But year 4 isn't going to be the year for the Kraken either. It's going to be maybe year 5 and hope that one of Goyette and Furcus and Rakoff and somebody else hits and maybe Salah hits. And that you start building the team not around the 30-somethings that are here now, but again by the next generation.
Interesting. Just the question is, does Ron Francis make it that far?
Yeah. Does Ron Francis make it that far? And boy, Jared McCann would be a huge move. That would be huge.
I'm sure Chad will have opinions on that
Chad,
one.
lots of all capitals. No, not Canner. people not totally on board with that one, Glenn.
Well, don't think that you can trade Brandon Tanev and get yourself an elite scorer or get younger that way. I'm not saying it's the right move. I'm just saying you have to look at who is an untouchable on this roster. And outside of maybe Berniers and Decord, maybe, who's an untouchable?
Shane Wright's the closest there is. Maybe Vince Dunn,
Yeah, I think Yanni Gord's that guy. I've been on the record saying I think Yanni Gord is that guy to move potentially. Big super chat here from Elizabeth. Rough, I appreciate the bit of spark, but it still feels the same. I get the playoffs are off the table, but I miss the fun. Can we try some crazy plays? Call up some kids. I mean, I'd take a flying V at this point.
Flying V would be pretty fun. I mean, this game, for all the, as badly as the Kraken played, there were some fun, weird moments in this one. It was at least a lot more entertaining than the previous two. But yeah, I'm all for it. Like I said, last post game, if you're gonna lose fun.
Yeah, no, lose fun, and that's what I think a lot of this comes down to is the Kraken, both strategies that they've taken in the offensive zone this year, whether it was the early season strategy of essentially dump and chase and trying their weird triangle thing for another year of off all on the half boards, or what they've kind of been doing now, where again, they're leaning into the fact that you've got goaltending, you've got defense, you don't have scoring. Let's try to win low scoring games. Both styles of play from them have been pretty boring. Right? It has not led to anything exciting. And more importantly, there's been nothing creative about it. Right? I think what you saw tonight from Buffalo was them getting creative with the players that they have. We've seen this from other teams around the league. I think the Kraken just need to start getting creative. You have guys who have the capability of finishing, right? Oliver Bjorkstrand has scored 28 goals in this league, right? He has never been that player really here with the Kraken, in part because he's never put in a spot to be. And so I still think that a lot of this, especially on the power play, just comes down to them needing to get creative with how they approach just the idea of being in the offensive zone.
Yeah, I mean, do you think maybe even think a little bit less? Like you look at the first goal tonight, right? They almost didn't have time to kind of think. It was the first shift getting into it, but you had that east-west passing and you opened some things up. You saw it a lot from the Sabres later in the game, but you didn't see it from the Kraken after that play.
Right, exactly. I think there's stuff like that, just more player movement. Again, have somebody go down low who can draw some defenders away, provide some time and space, give guys a chance. Like these are the things that I think the Kraken need to focus on through the last now 15 games of the season, just to help build those habits for next year.
Well, let me ask you guys a question.
All right.
This is largely the same team, except for the fourth line from last year. And I know there were the injuries. They haven't had the health they had last year. But we define insanity as doing the same things and expecting a different result. But the Kraken, it seems to me, are doing the same things and not getting the same result. Is that just a return to the mean, or why aren't they? This was the fourth highest scoring team in the NHL last season. What happened?
Well, I mean, I do think you point to just, raw shooting percentage and finishing luck that even at the start of the season, we said that probably wasn't sustainable going forward. And if they were going to have success, they were going to have to do it differently. And then, the fourth line, you are losing a lot of goals from that, though, just from a scoring perspective. And whether or not that was sustainable if they kept him for another year is another question. But I don't know. What do you think, Dylan?
Well, I think some of it was just other teams watched the Kraken. The other teams weren't going to take the Kraken lightly this year, right? Because of what they did going to game 7 of round 2, right? Like you knew that you were going to need to show up to play the Seattle Kraken in a way that you weren't planning on, last season, right? Because coming off of year 1, the Kraken weren't anything. You didn't have to worry about them. They weren't the team when you looked at your schedule for that week and you said, okay, let's watch some tape and figure out how to stop them. And I think that's, again, where the lack of creativity has kind of come in. The Kraken didn't evolve season over season. and the rest of the league evolves. They look at what you did last year, they figure out how to stop it, and then they put that plan in place and they stop you. And then it's on you to find that next gear, find that next thing. And I feel like the Kraken have been searching kind of for that next thing, but they haven't really landed on anything that's been consistent for them at all. And I think that's really where the problem lies the most.
Yeah.
Because shooting percentage explains some of it, but they're like 50 goals off from last year.
Yeah, it is a bigger gap than even, what the fourth line and just shooting percentage back to average would give you.
Yeah. And then Coop here with the super chat. If we can't get a superstar this summer, what do you think about finding a great net front player to screen and take away goalies' eyes so our shots can go in? This is what I'm talking about. If you're not going to land Jake Gensel or find another shooter in, via trade, I think the Kraken need to start bringing in some people to screen goalies, pull defenders away, start creating time and space opportunities for guys to get shots off, because you have guys who can score on this roster. That probably makes Eli Tolvanen a 20-plus goal scorer. That'll get Oliver Bjorkstrand back into 20, 25 goal territory, right? If you can just provide them a little bit of time to use the skills that they have, they will. It's just right now they're not being given that.
Yeah, I mean, you made a good observation, like against Nashville, how they have some finishers, but they have some big guys on each line that can open up space, especially net front for those guys. And I think that's something the Kraken lack. Jaden Schwartz is really the only guy, and you can't count on him being healthy, as we've learned. So, I mean, what do you think, Glenn?
Well, again, let's think out of the box. Some great teams have used defensemen to screen out in front because they're the biggest, toughest guys. Scott Stevens for the Devils was used on their power play. Just one example. There have been others. Maybe it's time to say to Adam Larson or Jamie Alexiak, hey, we're going to park you in front. We know you've got decent hands. We don't expect you to make fancy plays, but we expect you to get in the way and knock their defenders out of the way. Again, those are the biggest guys on the team. Maybe they need to be used in extra man situations.
Interesting. Glenn on team Jamie Alexiak net front, which is fun. We're getting some good out-of-the-box ideas from you tonight, Glenn.
I know. I like it. But why not, right? Like, nothing else has worked for this power play in 3 years, so you might as well try it at this point, right?
Well, you know what else hasn't worked for 3 years? They've been a rotten home team for 3 years with great fans. Even when they had a great season last year, they were road warriors. They couldn't win at home. Now they can't win at all on a 5-game homestand. One thing they've got to do next year is start winning some home games.
Yes, how? I mean, that's the question we've been asked so many times, is how and why are they losing them? Do the fans need to get worse, Glenn? Think outside the box.
Well, I'll tell you what. The fans have been remarkably patient, haven't they? You hear very few boos.
Yeah,
I mean,
even tonight.
Yeah.
Even tonight, you didn't hear boos.
But I don't blame the fans for it. At home, you have advantages. You have the last change. You're more well-rested. You have the home cooking. I don't know. Well, what some teams have done when they've done better on the road is they start staying in hotels.
We floated that last season, whether they should do that or not.
They got to do something, because that's how you lose a fan base, is by not winning at home. And they haven't done it for 3 years. And it's been a lot of nights that haven't been incredible nights under our roof.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a struggle for them. And yes, we did bring up the idea of staying in a hotel last year because it's brutal. Zoe saying they stayed in a hotel before the Winter Classic. So, that was arguably their best home game of the season. There might be something to this.
Yeah. How did I not know that? Huh.
I don't know.
Or they need to start playing home games at T-Mobile.
Yeah, well,
all of them,
Mariners should be okay with that. They're not using it during those months. Yeah, no, it's some good stuff there. I'm just going through stuff. I mean, everybody's really enjoying having you on here, Glenn. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. Whenever you want to get rid of me, though, you say thanks. Now here's your parting gifts, okay?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. RJ, you got the swag bag for him?
Oh yeah, it's in the backpack. Yeah. But no, that's the rule. Again, if you can come find us, hop on. You're always welcome, and stay as much or as little time as you want to. I promise I'm not like holding him here hostage. He's here of his own volition.
Yep, definitely. Let's see. Andrew, as a fan base, should we be staying in a hotel? Maybe.
There we go. Have the fans stay in hotels. Yeah. Outside the box thinking, Glenn.
All right, RJ, one of the big things that we've talked about going into this, and we obviously know that the forward groups have been shifted up a bunch. There wasn't necessarily the defense, at least coming into the game, the whole switch up with the defensive pairs, but then Jamie Alexiak gets hurt, misses most of the game. So first off, was there an update on him post-game? And two, it did lead to us seeing kind of some different defensive pairings. Did you see anything you liked?
Right. Well, first off, no update on him post game because he returned to the game. He ended up playing in the third period, so I think we can assume he's more or less okay. And then as far as the D pairs, I did like that they went with Evans Larson for a bit longer. Like the results, the numbers weren't all that great. Funny enough, numbers wise, this was the best game for Evan Schultz so far. 80% expected goal share for that pair. But I actually, Dylan, you could probably check now. Did Riker Evans finish the game with the most ice time of any Kraken player? Because I remember late in the third he was there.
No, he didn't even finish amongst defensemen. Larson passed him by a minute exactly on D.
Okay. Hey, can we give a shout out one more time to Alexiak, because he came back into the game third period. The Kraken are down by 3 goals.
Yeah.
They're not coming back. They could have finished the game without him. It's not like the game had playoff implications. And yet he's out there skating his shift. And that kind of shows the dedication that he has. And that it's the reason fans do love this team, because they if they can skate, if they can limp out there, because he was hurting.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he's out there taking his shift because he can. He's in pain, but he's not injured. And, hockey players, they're just a different breed. And good on you, Jamie.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, for all the talk about effort issues and, has the team just kind of thrown in the towel and kind of given up after the playoff hopes have evaporated? Certainly not the case for Jamie Alexiak. He did prove that tonight. I mean, as far as the D pairs, though, Dylan, did you see anything that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, I just like seeing something a little bit different. I'd have to go back and kind of look at it, because it wasn't like they necessarily got a ton of stuff together. I just like
4 minutes max that one of the unusual pairs had. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a lot, but I, in general, liked what I saw from Riker Evans tonight. Like, I thought this was a better game from him. Like, it was a more understated game, but I felt like it was a better game from him. And I know he struggled. The plus minus isn't great for him or whatever, but I felt like he was trying to take charge a little bit more when he was out there with Justin Schultz. He was kind of asserting himself a little bit more as far as when it was, his turn to step up or his turn to play the puck, he was, instead of deferring as much as he maybe has in the past. And, maybe that's the reason the numbers were better.
Right. I mean, the confidence was back to an extent. Still not back where it was when he first came up, but it was a little better, which was good to see.
Yeah, everybody on board with praising Jamie Alexiak for being able to come back out there. I know from being on Discord at the time, and I saw some stuff on Twitter as well, RJ, just the situation when a player goes down like that on the ice and the refs aren't blowing it dead, right? Jamie Alexiak was in a lot of pain on the ice there, and the refs kept it going because Buffalo continued that possession. So I guess I just wanted to take a moment here to really kind of talk about what that situation is, because I know it's an unusual situation. Maybe not everybody knows, but it's up to the refs to judge basically whether or not they feel like the injury is severe enough to pause play while the other team has the puck in the offensive zone. Otherwise, they're going to wait for a change of possession, which they ultimately did. Now, I'd love to ask both of your opinions. Do you think that it was because it was off of a shot block that the ref just assumed it was a stinger rather than something more serious?
Glenn, you want to take this?
Well, I know Yanni Gourde, when the whistle was blown, had a few choice and probably unprintable words for the referee, wondering why. Because, if Jamie Alexiak is down and he's not getting up, he's hurt. Yeah. And it wasn't like the Sabres had the puck in a dangerous area. The puck was along the boards. They had possession. But the whistle could have been blown and probably should have.
Yeah, although I kind of reading the play and the way it went, I feel like this is the way it's called most of the time, unless it's something really severe. They'll give it a little bit of time, and the Sabres did work the puck back into the middle fairly quickly. So there was nothing, I guess, egregious that I saw. And I know, if Lexiak's down, he is hurt, but also where he got hit too, the risk of, I think when a guy gets hit in the face, maybe they treat it a little bit differently if he's bleeding, things like that, versus when he's on the ice, the risk of any kind of the injury getting worse, I guess, is not that high. The fans certainly didn't like it. There was a big "ref you suck" chant right after. I don't know if the broadcast caught that, but as I don't have a huge problem with the way they handled it.
Yeah, and I also this is one of the things, and I hate having to think this way now too, but I also wonder if the refs have been told in situations like that to be even err more on the side of allowing the scoring chance to potentially happen, just because one, the league for years has needed the offense, but two, as gambling becomes more and more prevalent on the outside of everything, a lot of that is predicated on scoring and offense and player props and all of that stuff. And I do wonder if it's better for everything in general if the refs are staying out of it as much as possible, if that's like something that they're being told, right? Just really like err on the side of caution here. We don't want anybody noticing us, so to speak, in a situation like that.
Yeah, and I think in general that's probably the better way to go about it. Just you don't want the refs influencing the game. You want as little as possible. And yeah, you just have to make a judgment call about, is the injury severe enough and could it get worse? Could this get worse than it already is? And I don't know that I would have thought that was the case if I was looking at it real quick.
But you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
It's true. Yeah, if Buffalo goes and scores a goal right out and they blow the whistle down, they're going to face a lot more scrutiny for that than if they let it go like they did.
Or let's say it's the other way. A Buffalo player is down and they do blow the whistle. Well, you're getting the same chance.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Got a question here for you, Glenn, from JTB Hockey. Who do you think the Kraken need to pursue in this offseason?
I think it's not a specific player because it's not a great UFA class. I think they need to get younger. And I hate to say that because it means maybe parting with some of the favorite and best players on the roster. But I think they need to get younger. What they proved this year, I think, is that they're not going to be a playoff team, at least not one that's going to make it to the conference finals with the roster as it's constructed. And that is painful for fans to go, well, maybe a Jordan Eberle won't be good enough. And maybe Jaden Schwartz won't be good enough. And maybe even Yanni Gord won't be good enough. They're good players. They're favorites. They give it their all. But I would like to see this team get younger. It's not a specific player, but some roster churn needs to happen, because if they do bring the same team back, why should we expect a different result?
Right. So not in. You don't like anyone on the top of the UFA class. Reinhart, Gensel. I think that'd be a mistake.
The thing about Reinhart is he's only had one great season, the player from Florida, and he most likely won't be available. It's quite likely Florida wants to keep him, and that, hey, the way they're playing, why wouldn't he want to stay there and stay in sunny Florida? So he may not even be available. It's going to have to be through trades. Now, at the trade deadline, we did hear Ron Francis say he's been stockpiling picks. He's not against using some of those picks in exchange for roster players. And I think that's the way they're going to have to go. But the other thing is, it isn't one elite player. Connor Bedard didn't make the Chicago Blackhawks into winners. He's part of the answer, but one player isn't going to change it. What we have on the Kraken is a team of complementary pieces, which is great if you've got great players to go with them. That takes time, but I think that's the way you got to go. You've got to get several upgrades.
Yeah, it takes time.
No, it is. It is, especially after this year. It's easy to be on board with that. Just because you mentioned getting younger. One of the big things that a lot of people have been talking about within our community and Kraken fans in general has been the idea of using these last now 15 games of the season to potentially call up some younger guys, give them a cup of coffee in the NHL. Is that something that you'd be interested in seeing from the Kraken, Glenn?
What do you think? Well, I've made my opinions known.
You're not going to see Shane Wright for enough games to burn the entry-level contract. Let's just get that out of the way now.
Yep.
What Ron Francis has said about Shane is, which actually kind of surprised me, is that he expects Shane Wright to make this team and be here for the full season next year. So that's what they're aiming at. And an extra 5 or 6 games this season won't change that. I will say one other thing. Some people have floated that, well, you don't want to hurt the chemistry of the Coachella Valley Firebirds in their playoff run. Let me assure you, that is of no consequence to anybody in the Kraken front office, regardless of what they say. If they think next year's Kraken can be better at the expense of Coachella Valley, that is, I'm sorry, that's what Coachella Valley is there for. But probably the best thing for Riker Evans and Shane Wright is another 20 games a long playoff run in Coachella Valley. And hey, come back ready to knock it out of the park in September.
Yeah, no, definitely. And boy,
that didn't answer the question at all, did it?
It did. Well, it did.
Anybody else? I guess anybody else beyond those two, the ones you mentioned, that you'd like to see up for a few games? Logan Morrison, Viliatsevine, any of those guys?
There's been like 10 different Coachella Valley players that have been up to the Kraken. Who has come up and you've said, man, I wish he'd stayed?
Aside from Shane Wright and Ryan Winterton a little bit, yeah, no, nobody else. I mean, and Riker Evans, of course.
Yeah, well, that's why they need to bring up a Logan Morrison. I went on the record earlier today. He's the next Ty Cartier, like a bottom 6 kind of role player guy for the Kraken there. People in chat saying John Hayden. People do love themselves some John Hayden, Glenn.
Entertainment for the fans, I suppose.
If you're going to be losing games, entertainment's a way to go, as we have established.
I hate Kraken PR. New slogan: lose fun.
Yes.
Yeah, for the rest of the season, I think it worked.
Yes. So I like that aspect of it. And then just because we've got a couple minutes here left, I think the other big thing that's been talked about and floated, and I'd love to get your opinion. I'm sure everybody would like to hear your opinion, Glenn. And that's just the overall situation around Dave Hackstall, especially as we're coming off of what's arguably the Kraken's all-time worst homestand. A big streaky season. We talked earlier about maybe they're not always being the creativity that's needed. A lot of people are questioning whether or not we might see something, a coaching change basically at the end of the year if the season kind of continues the way that it's been this last week or so.
Unless you're Scotty Bowman, as a pro coach, you're hired to be fired. Very few people get to walk away on their own terms. But Dave Hackstall, as I think you guys may have mentioned, is already the longest tenured coach in the Pacific Division, which doesn't say much for the tenure of NHL coaches. But there's something unusual about the Kraken, and you tell me if you agree. They are, by pro sports standards, a patient franchise. Now, I know you can take that too far, but there are a lot of coaches who were in Hackstall's situation this year who have already been jettisoned. And I'm not sure that's the way to go. Did Patrick Waugh, he made the Islanders better? Are the Blues really better without Craig Berube? So the question is, what would the Kraken do with somebody besides Hackstall? One thing we know is when the team went through its losing streak, he didn't lose the room. Mm-hmm. He has their respect, and that's important.
Yeah,
because it's been a tough year. I think he gets next year as well. After that, let's see if he makes adjustments. he made one big adjustment this year. He decided if the Kraken weren't going to score more, they had to stop the other team from scoring more. And do you realize the Kraken are the 8th best defensive team, tonight's result notwithstanding,
Right.
the 8th best defensive team in the league. So if they can marry that defense and the goaltending with decent offense, they're back in the playoffs next year.
Right. And I think, yeah, he's certainly going to get the start of next season. Just logically, it doesn't make sense for Francis to get rid of him right now. Just to protect his own job, I think that's another step that you have in the way, right? But I think one of the things that people have been bringing up is, as you mentioned, he didn't lose the room during that long losing streak this season. But people are starting to wonder right now. I mean, this team it looks lifeless. The effort doesn't look there. And you're starting in a way that we haven't really seen this season for this long of a stretch. And if this goes on for another 10 games, 15 games, at what point does that change? That he hasn't lost the room. And I mean, what kind of things are you looking for there? And is there any eventuality, where he might be actually in danger?
Yeah, sure there is, because this is a winning, results-oriented business. And this is his record with the Kraken on top of not having an exemplary record with the Flyers. He only made the playoffs 1 year there. I think he deserves the full season, but patience may wane. And, the old chestnut, you can't fire the whole team. So maybe the coach has to pay the price, and especially an expansion team where maybe it's not the coach's fault. But, look what the Canucks did when they got Tocchet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the question is, coaches are always different when you change. So if you've got a low-key coach, well, then are you looking for a Firebrand? Are you looking for a Tocchet? Are you looking for a Tortorella type? No, I didn't say that. Yeah, I didn't say that. I don't know who that
A little
was.
too far out of the box there.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah.
But I am suggesting maybe a low-key, stay-the-course guy.
Hmm.
Well, you've got that in Hackstall.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be looking for that from the next guy.
Yeah.
No, it's very, very true. Got like 2-3 minutes here left. Is there anything else you wanna talk about, Glenn, or tell the community here?
This is the best operation going. This is the best one. But if you want to see the second best, come over to the Hockey News. Okay, now, all right, what other suggestions do I have? No more free agents signed from the Colorado Avalanche, okay? Because they get in that rarefied air, the thin air in Denver, and then they come back down here to sea level, and they can't stay healthy. So no more Avalanche signings, okay? I don't care if McCarr and McKinnon, if they tear up their contracts, it wouldn't work here. That's all I got.
All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, it's different at sea level versus at altitude, that's for sure. And thank you, by the way, for the kind words, Glenn. We do appreciate that. You do great work at the Hockey News. Everybody check him out at the Hockey News. You're versatile. You write. You've got these little podcasts that you do. You're even on video. It's a lot more than just the magazine that everybody's used to. So everyone go check out Glenn at the Hockey News.
Yep, definitely. Is there anything else from this game that you wanted to talk about, RJ? I love the sweater, by the way. It's
thank you.
My favorite game day fit from you.
Yeah, no, I do like this one. I probably wear it a little too much. People recognize me instantly. They see the sweater. But yeah, I mean, as far about this game, I thought the Grubauer mask switch was interesting. Switching masks between periods.
I was gonna say, like, did anybody talk about that afterwards? Like, was that
no? Grubauer was out of the room. We just talked to the couple we talked to, and probably not the time and place to ask about a curiosity like that. Maybe in the coming days we'll get a chance or something. But yeah, no answer on that. I do wonder if superstition was involved though.
Yeah.
Well, if it was, you won't be seeing it again.
No, that is true. Looking ahead, obviously we've got the game against Vegas next up. One more reminder for everybody that is our Patreon live game commentary over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey. You could come in and watch the game with RJ and I. Will be, live the whole time. We always have a great time for those. But it's the first half of a back-to-back, RJ, at the end of this week. After a game like tonight, where both goaltenders kind of struggled, what are you thinking as far as who starts where in both Vegas and then Arizona the next night?
Well, I'd give Joey Arizona because, look, at this point, they're not making the playoffs. Go with the feel-good thing. Give Grubauer Vegas, Joey Arizona. He gets to play in his old barn. I think he'll do better there anyway, just because it's his old. Yeah, well, he never played there, in college, but it's his, it's his area,
mater,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, his alma mater. He'll have plenty of fans there.
Here's something for you to discuss next time.
Okay.
I know you're out of time now.
Yeah.
I don't think Joey Daccord is physically tired. Goalies are in great shape. I do wonder whether all the games he played took a mental toll, an emotional toll, where he's not quite as sharp as he was during his incredible run. And that's why we've seen a little drop off. Don't know.
I've been on the record saying the same thing. Like, I think he got burned out having to shoulder the load. He did a great job for the Kraken. He was the guy that they needed him to be, but that is a very unsustainable workload that he was working there for the Kraken. And we saw it the previous season with Martin Jones from the Kraken too, when Philip Grubauer was injured then. It's a tough ask of anybody. I will say I'm with you, RJ. I would love to see Joey get the start in Arizona, but after the Winter Classic and how well Joey played against Vegas and then the game, last week, you gonna do that really? Joey's got to get the start against Vegas, right?
I still wouldn't do it. Again, wins don't help you. Wins don't help you right now. The system's messed up.
We had this big argument earlier. We won't drag Glenn into the middle of it. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks everybody for joining us again. Reminder, that Vegas game is our live game commentary over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey. Huge shout out to Flat Stick Pub for sponsoring this. Again, April 5th, that game against the Ducks will be our live watch party at the South Lake Union location. I'm going to be up there. I'm super pumped. I'm even working on maybe bringing some surprise giveaways and stuff that we can have for that one. So really excited for that one. And then, of course, a huge shout out to Glenn for joining us from the Hockey News. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for us, and we will see you all next time.